Hi, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Ali Bulur, and
I'm Scott.
so we're from the Bulur Carl Immigration Group. And like I said last time, we're going to have a series of fireside chats on various topics having to do with immigration law. That we'll try to, it's all the questions that we get, honestly, through email, phone calls, or whatever. These are common questions that people have, and we try to answer them in a fireside format. So thank you. Today's topic is mandamus. So I'm just going to start right off the bat. What's a mandamus, Scott?
Mandamus is a federal action where you're asking a federal judge to order that a government agency act on your case. Now, to be clear, the judge can't order USCIS to approve your case or deny your case, only that they have to do something with it. So it's not necessarily you showing a judge why you deserve a green card or citizenship. It is telling the judge, I'm asking for USCIS to do this thing, and they're taking way too long.
Okay. So, right. So not every delayed case is mandamus worthy.
No, and there's not really a bright line rule either of my case has been pending for 181 days. Now I get to go to federal court. It's all about the reasonableness of the delay, and it's really on a case-by-case basis. So it requires talking to an experienced attorney specifically about what's taking so long to determine if mandamus really is the route you should be going.
Okay. So let me ask you just a bunch of questions. I mean, these are all questions, as you know, that we get, right? So somebody's immigrant visa, is stuck abroad, right, for years, background processing, administrative processing. Is that mandamus worthy?
Could be, yeah, very well could be. I think multiple years is would constitute being an unreasonable delay. Now, some things might come into effect though as well that you have to take into consideration. The country of origin, right? The backgrounds of the case. For instance, was somebody involved with a country's government that is not necessarily friendly with the U.S.'s? Because what could happen is you file the mandamus, and maybe it gets to the judge ordering the State Department to make a decision on the visa, but that decision doesn't necessarily have to be an approval. So
Right.
you really want to be careful with when would be a good time to bring that.
Right. So it's interesting that you brought up, the country of origin, because we actually touched on this yesterday as to, some countries have bigger issues. And I mentioned the lawsuit that you're working on regarding the IRGC.
Mm-hmm.
So that was briefly mentioned yesterday. But that's a great example. If the applicant if the foreign national is Iranian, and they have served in IRGC, which has been designated a terrorist group as of April 2019, and it's retroactive. So even if it was in the 90s, it would matter. They're ineligible for a U.S. visa.
Yeah. So, for instance, with that ban in effect, if somebody right now filed a mandamus, most likely what would happen is the State Department would issue a denial.
Right. So what's the difference between mandamus that would trigger a denial and the lawsuit that you're working on?
No, really should clarify.
Yeah, I can clarify. So a mandamus forces a decision,
Yes.
right? Which could be yay or nay, not necessarily what you want to hear,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we're going to court regarding the IRGC.
Oh, in regards to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the IRGC, we're challenging the government's authority to actually deny these cases based on their involvement in IRGC, given the circumstances and given the breadth of which they're denying people, versus a mandamus, which is just basic, which is, like I've said before, just a judge saying, hey, government agency, USCIS, State Department, whoever, you're taking too long on this. It's unreasonable at this point. This person has a right to have a final decision on their case. You have to issue a decision.
Okay. So some other examples. What if somebody's green card here stateside has been pending, or work authorization has been pending
Absolutely.
forever and ever? Is that mandamus worthy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for instance, recently we filed an EAD for a client whose work authorization, based on being a pending asylee, had been pending for about 10 months. Now, 10 months in and of itself isn't necessarily that long in the immigration world. However, we were able to show the judge and in our filing that this person was about to lose their work, that they weren't able to renew their driver's license, and that is what made the delay unreasonable. And we had a successful outcome. USCIS, without the judge needing to issue an order, got on it and got us an EAD really quickly.
Perfect. So another example within the asylum world, right? Some cases get interviewed and the person either gets a recommended approval or just, sits there at the asylum office with no final decision, whether it be a referral to immigration court or just a straight up approval. Is that case mandamus worthy?
I think it is. And it gets a little interesting and tricky in those cases because you're dealing with multiple agencies after a recommended approval. USCIS would argue, and has argued in other cases with a recommended approval, that they've done their job.
Mm-hmm.
Their job is just to decide the asylum case. They issued a recommended approval. Now they're waiting on various background checks, quote unquote.
So why can't we sue
you would include the
Department of Justice?
You would perhaps include the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the lawsuit and say, hey, you're taking too long in that mandamus, and hopefully that would trigger an action. Now, we should be clear that having a mandamus post-recommended approval is different necessarily in the time frame of pre-interview, because there are multiple decisions from various jurisdictions around the country where people have been waiting for an interview for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And judges in those cases have said that's actually a reasonable amount of time, and that USCIS isn't required to give you an interview at that point just because you've been waiting 2 years for an interview.
Right. So just a side question, how fun is it to sue all these government officials on a pleading?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's way more fun than simply filing some forms and waiting for a response and waiting for bureaucracy.
Right.
Actually getting to allege and accuse them of taking too long.
Yeah, so ironically, honestly, we've been practicing for a very long time, and the whole mandamus thing came about because of the Trump administration's just stonewalling almost every single application. So you'll find that a lot of immigration attorneys actually have become over the past 4 years great litigators in federal court because we do go to court and we do win cases. I think the stats are something like 90 or 95% of mandamus cases get the cases going in the right direction.
Yeah, that sounds about right. In our personal experience with filing these, every single one but one has gotten the case going without really even needing to fight much of it.
Really? Because yesterday I said we have 100% batting average. Was that incorrect?
One's pending still.
Okay.
We're actually fighting the government on it.
Okay, so almost 100% batting average.
Well, it might end up being 100%.
It might, and yeah, sure. So, what if, again, different scenarios we talked about? Anything that I missed?
No, naturalization applications also is one that we've been able to get some movement on. You got to be, those get a little bit tricky because there's a separate statute aside from the mandamus that says the government has to act within 4 months of an interview of getting a decision.
Sure.
So that's a little bit different. But
So let's say a client calls today and wants to file a mandamus. What's the timeline and the procedure that you would tell the client?
Yeah, again, I need to know some of the details, but assuming, let's say it's a green card application. Mm-hmm. My green card application has been pending for 2 years. We had our interview a year ago. It's a marriage-based green card. We had our marriage interview a year ago, and it's still pending. What can we do? Well, I would recommend, perhaps that would be a mandamus-worthy case. And right now, we can get those filed, depending on how quickly clients get us stuff. Usually within a couple of weeks, we can get things going. Now, once you file, that's just the first step, obviously. The government gets 60 days to respond to any lawsuit, and typically they get right up into that 60-day before you really see some movement. Around, the 45 to 60-day area, that's usually when we're able to contact the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they look into the case. They talk to USCIS and try to figure out, what's going on here? Is somebody just being slow in their work, or is there an actual problem? If it's just somebody being slow in their work, they're able to kind of deal with it. If it's an actual problem, then they kind of tell us what the deal is. At around that point, is when we'll see the movement on USCIS's side, and actual negotiations begin with us and getting resolution on the underlying immigration case, or, as in the one other case, that's when we see the government push back and say, this is why we're not giving a response, this is why we shouldn't have to give a response. So,
Yeah, so I kind of want to actually mention that, I mean, filing mandamus is fun and all, and you get results, but you also have to be careful in what cases that you want to go forward. So you need to really be in contact with an immigration attorney that you trust, because aside from losing your money and getting a bad decision, if the case goes forward, you kind of want to make sure that you're not creating bad law.
yeah, and that's something for every lawyer who's watching is to take into consideration.
Yeah.
Again, the underlying facts are really important, and we don't want to put bad law out there.
So the IRGC claimed that we're working on, I mean, we've literally been laboring over it for months and months and months, and it's still work in progress, but hopefully light at the end of the tunnel.
In part because there is some really bad law out there on the issue.
Yeah, there's some bad law, and we don't want to create more bad law.
Exactly. Don't want to make a bad situation.
Right. Yeah. So that's it for Mandamus?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, give us a call, email us. Like I said, we're Mandamus powerhouse here. Actually, Scott is. But I just claim the credit. And we're going to have these conversations on different topics, so please subscribe. There's buttons right there. Subscribe, follow us, and learn everything that we know. Have a good afternoon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.